what the fuck is codependency, right? We've heard this term so much. We've heard people talk about it. We've done research and we found like, oh my God, we exhibit a lot of the symptoms of codependency. So I just want to get some feelers out there as to what you think codependency is. And remember, in any of the spaces in the inner yaks groups, there are no answers that are wrong. And there are no answers, or there's nothing you feel that you can ever think you will be shamed for over here. So nothing is wrong in here. Just feel free to speak your mind and we'll provide guidance as to whether that's like the most accurate representation of what we believe it is. So anybody would like to go? Feel free to raise your hand or take yourself off mute. I saw Rose go first. Rose, one of our champions. Get over here, Rose, from Jersey. Come on up.
You really killed me. So I am very codependent, or I'm healing from codependency. Everybody gets put first before myself, and I've done a lot of healing from it. So I finally learned to put myself first. Okay. But I also see in relationships, I'm learning that I always go above and beyond for the other person.
Okay. So in your case, codependency is about you showing up more for somebody else than for yourself, right?
Exactly. Yes. Okay.
Beautiful. Can anybody else tell me what they think codependency is?
Relying on the other person to meet your emotional needs, or expecting that from them, or something like that.
Okay. So relying on someone to meet your emotional needs. Okay. So that is a dependency. Why would it be called a codependency?
Because you're depending on the other person. Actually, I don't know. You tell me.
That's good. No, you're getting there, but we'll round it up, and I'm sure we'll get to that point anyway. But you're right. That's a huge part of it, is depending on someone else for your emotional needs, right?
And then maybe the codependency comes from they also need you to need them to meet their needs, or to meet your needs. So you're each needing your needs met from the other person in unhealthy ways.
Look at that water fast doing wonders on you. God damn, lighten up those brains. I saw Kimberlina type in the word enabling. What does that mean, Kimberlina? What does the word enabling mean to you? I want everybody to understand this concept, because enabling might be new for some of us who may not have heard what enabling means. So what do you mean by enabling?
So enabling is allowing a person's behavior to continue, even if this behavior is detrimental to their own self, their own person, inner child, to the relationship, and being there. Like I relate it like to an addict, is a person is constantly running out of money because of their habits, but you're constantly giving them money for an electric bill. You know what I mean? So you're turning a blind eye to that pattern of behavior, and you're allowing it to continue.
I love that, because you're talking about the other side of codependency that we don't really talk about that much, right? Like you brought in such a powerful word. In doing so, you're creating accountability for codependency, where you're talking about, it's not just about, oh my God, I need someone for my emotional needs. Now we're talking about, I kind of enable someone else to act a certain way. Why? Because that makes me feel a certain something. That triggers some response or something within me. Beautiful. Anybody else? Alicia, I saw you.
In the relationship, when you keep reacting off of each other.
Yes, good. You react off of each other. I love that. That's short and sweet and beautiful, and that adds so much value. Virgie?
Okay, it's just where my experiences, we bring out the worst in each other, the ugly. We know each other's kind of weaknesses, and we can to pick those apart.
Thank you, Virgie. Chris, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
Good.
For me, I feel like codependency has been me needing somebody to need me so that I can feel secure.
Oh, thank you, by the way, Chris. That was awesome. So, big question to all of you. Can you be codependent? Can codependency really exist if I'm not in a relationship? You can have those symptoms or those feelings inside which can create codependency in the future when you get into a relationship. But when you're not in a relationship, can those tendencies exhibit themselves? So if you had no emotional or relational connection with people, can you exhibit those tendencies? Let me first define codependency and then tell you what I think about how it shows up in a relationship. So codependency is, in essence, using something or someone, it's most likely another person, to unconsciously bring out the coping mechanisms you are so used to. But in a relationship, why it's called codependency is because it's two people using each other. Now, more often, the spotlight is very much on the one person who is talking about like, oh shit, I'm a like, I really need this person. I abandon myself for this person. I keep like, wanting to please them, prove myself, all of that. Like all of those in psychology technically are their own mechanisms. But what separates codependency from these is the fact that you attract a person who keeps, as Kimberlina got it spot on, you attract a person who enables this from you. This can be seen so strongly before you even get into a relationship with a partner. This is such a strong existence in a relationship with a parent, where a parent and you constantly go back and forth and trigger each other, where, as you grow older, what I love studying about parent relationships, and I get to only talk about really like romantic relationships so much because that's what everybody really wants to hear. But I love studying parent relationships because that's where reparenting actually like shows up, right? And that's our first idea of how we start creating our relationships in the future, the relationship that we've had with our parent. Now, for a lot of parents, how many of you have had parents who really have exhibited control in your life in some way, right? Who've wanted to control you in some way, who said, don't dress like this, come to church, do this, blah, blah, blah. You should like have this career, you should do X, Y, Z. Okay. Now, for all of those people who raised your hands, how many of you, for those same parent, have gone out of your way to try and prove yourself to that parent? It's almost every one of us. If you think about it, they are unconsciously creating the mechanism that we're going to fall into, because that's what for them, gives them that sense of validation. But who can a parent control the most in their lives? A child. Because a child is at the mercy of the development, of the guidance, of the support from the parent figure, which is why almost every single one of us develops with some sort of strong core wound, what in the gauntlet we call these core wounds, and that's what we work on, whether it comes to abandonment, rejection, invalidation, whatever that comes from. It stems from the place where we were first. You know where our first identity of a relationship comes from? A relationship with your caregiver, literally the person whose womb you were in. So you have developed a relationship with the person whose womb you were in before you were even born. And that is because at that point, that is a dependency. You have to depend on the person. You have to depend on your mother for like nutrition, blah, 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 whatever else. So the difference between dependency and codependency is the powerful tool of enabling. And someone said like, oh, isn't codependency like the old school conversation? Isn't it more about attachment styles? Now, having done both and teach both, I can tell you an attachment style is the definition of how one individual shows up. A codependent situation is how two individuals enable each other, how they both basically create. And here's what's so crazy. They create such a comfortable relationship for their egos to survive. Now, your ego is not about like, oh, I'm just like confident, bold, and blah, blah, blah. Your ego also shows up in people pleasing. It shows up in being submissive to someone. It shows up in abandoning yourself for their wounds. So in essence, the ego is basically just the old mechanisms that you used to live with to survive. So let's wrap this down again into what the definition is, right? I like to call codependency a dysfunctional relationship addiction. Now, why is it called a dysfunctional relationship addiction? Why is it a dysfunctional and why is it a relationship addiction? We talked about the fact that codependency needs it needs people to be able to depend on. So I asked you that question before. Can I exhibit codependency traits when I'm on my own? Here's the thing. If you're not in a relationship with a romantic relationship and you still say, yes, I'm exhibiting codependent tendencies, you're exhibiting them with somebody else. And that is a different kind of relationship, which means codependency or codependent tendencies almost always come out in some kind of relationship or some kind of relational connection. Codependency is the what. It's not the why. And now I'm going to tell you a step before. Because everything, as you know, with the inner yats, We don't just say, oh, this is what you're dealing with. Here are some tools, sprinkle some fucking tool sauce on them and make sure hopefully it doesn't happen again. No, we need to figure out why we're even having or behaving or doing those things. So dysfunctional relationship addiction. To one partner in a codependent relationship, they seriously need a relationship to be able to feel some value for themselves. And that's very obvious. Here's the sneaky, tricky stuff. To the other partner, they may be the one who's saying, I'm going to leave the relationship. They may be threatening to abandon the other person. They may be like, I'm on my way out of here, and they have one foot through the door. But they also are addicted to that same relationship. They're just addicted to the other side. It makes it look like they're running away from it. If they really wanted to run away from it, they would have stepped out of it. They would have said, I'm done. They've drawn the line, case closed. But they want the first person to chase after them. They want the validation of being like sought after, depended on. They want the fact that like this person's coming up to beg them and say like, please come back and bring me in this, so they can feel a false sense of entitlement. So both people are actually addicted to this kind of relationship. But why it's called dysfunctional is, as you can see, this relationship doesn't really end in true connection, does it? Is there anyone in this group who thinks a codependent relationship ultimately ends up in healthy, stable connection? If you do, and you have a point that I don't know about, I would love to hear about it. But I, in all the years of my experience, having worked with thousands of people, have never come across a codependent relationship where I found safety, trust, reliability, grounding, and a lack of wounds. In fact, I found the opposite. Massive instability, massive levels of dependency, core wounds flying all over the surface. And so I found people bring out, as someone said so strongly, I can't remember, I think maybe it was Virgie who said it, bringing out almost the worst in each other, triggering out the biggest challenges in each other. So now let's paint this picture first of, okay, codependency. Codependency means then, therefore, that I am using someone else to bring out the dysfunctional mechanisms within me. Remember why this is important is because there is a someone else who's bringing it out within me. We'll get to the healing of codependency and a lot about like, okay, what are the tools? What should I step into? What are the things to watch out for? A mix of these towards the end of today, but especially in the second session, because we're going to have 2 sessions on this in the month. So, but for now, we need to understand that it is because we're attracting a certain kind of partner who brings out a certain kind of mechanism from us. So the what we've talked about, which is codependency. Now the next question. Why am I in codependent relationships? This is the secret sauce. This is where it is that's bringing me or triggering me into this state. Hey, and welcome to the Inner Yats YouTube page. If you like our content, make sure you click the like and the subscribe button so that you get more of these amazing videos that keep coming your way.